Hello, and thank you for joining me. You're here with Data Science Teacher Brandyn, and we're going to learn how to use the choose diverging palette in it's kind of a tool, a function in Seaborn to import and to use to choose your color palette. Okay, and the diverging color palette is really handy when we want to be able to highlight positive and negative or two opposite ends of the spectrum of our continuous variable, highlight two opposite ends. Okay, this is different than say the light palette or dark palette, which is sequential. So you're just going from light or dark to one color or from one color to light or dark. This is going to be kind of light in the middle or dark in the middle, and we can kind of highlight the positives and negatives then. Okay, so just importing a data set, just importing this right from my GitHub reservoir. This is kind of the standard wine quality test, pretty beginner data set. I like this data set because it has lots of correlations in it, so it works really well for this one thing. So if we kind of the standard way you've probably seen correlations being used, so we have df.core, we're going to put that into a heat map, and we're going to note. I find a noting the annotation, seeing the actual numbers can be really helpful as well. So you can see we have some negative correlations here and some positive correlations over here. Personally, I really don't like the standard color of Seaborn. Well, most of the times I do, but for the heat map, I think I just don't really like this color palette. This lava color is not really the nicest. So just making this a little bit better before we get started talking on our correlation plot here. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to increase the figure size. I'm going to make the heat map just like we saw this. I'm going to add a title. I'm just putting a line break before and after to give it a little bit of space. In fact, the title gets a little scrunchy, increasing the font and the bolds of the text. I'm going to rotate the bottom numbers just a little bit, a very little bit, just to give it make it a little bit easier to read. Okay, so we clean this up a little bit and it looks a little bit nicer now. But so we're getting a nice plot, but we really need to worry about the colors. So we can use this SNS dot diverging palette. We don't have to pass it any arguments. And so it defaults to 22 and 10. So I played around with this already and I really settled on the color 142 and 58. So let's move this to 58. Get close to 58 and 142. Okay, 142. Oops. So what it does is as this prints out, it's going to make these colors. You'll be able to see the different contexts. As you can see here, I got yellow and I put that as the higher end. It just makes sense for the palette. And then on the lower end, I put a blue right here. Okay. Also noticing that I'm going to change L, which is really going to give us how light or how dark. So when we put 20 here, if you were to say put this as 10, just to show you here, if we were to say put this as 10, it's going to make it quite dark. And then if you go to 90, I think it's quite light. Okay, so this allows you to control how dark it is right here. I'm just playing around with this. Let's go to 30. And we're doing as CMAP equals true, right, in our diverging palette, which makes it a continuous color. We're able to play around with this. And so you can see here, we have this. So you can pay the separator. This is how much really where the center is going to be. Light L is going to be how light or how dark, so you can make it lighter. You can see as we do that, it's going to get lighter or darker. It really allows you to kind of have so much flexibility in the colors. The separator, how much space SEP is, how much white space is being used up in the middle to make this continuous color. So a little bit easier if I show you actually with this. Let's go S equals 90. You'll see here the middle part gets to be a lot. It still spreads out from the middle, but it gets to be, it takes a lot longer for it to get to be a more solid color, more fully saturated. And so one is kind of the default, which is really there isn't really more than just a little white space, and then it starts to turn into color instantly. So what that does is it can really allow you to, when you're thinking of the positive and negative correlations, it really allows you to focus and highlight just the positives and negatives. So what I've done here, I've turned SEP up to 15, right? So you can see here now all of the things 0.2, 0.14, all the little negatives, little positives are really white. You can't really, you just don't even really notice them. They're a little bit of color, but you don't really pay attention to them. So this is a really good handy feature to really just be able to customize your plot pretty substantially versus just even the default colors. Made it a little bit darker, added a little bit of SEP, and saturation, sorry. So what this does is it makes the intensity of the colors on either side. So if you turn this down to like, let's say 10, you'll be able to see here. It's not that it makes them lighter, it makes really just takes away the colors from them. So you can just see really there's really nothing left in the color there. It's just kind of black and white. So you can see here if we turn this up to 100, we got the full ones. But if we maybe looked at, let's say, another example, let's say 70, we get still bright colors, but not so bright. It's a little bit more faded and stuff like that. So you get control over that. In this one, we're just gonna look at bright colors. The most saturation that we can get in 100 is the max for the S argument right there. So L is light, the amount of lightness, so either light or dark. So the higher number would be more light. S is the saturation color. Sep is how much white space you want to be in the middle. So it helps you kind of ignore, in this case, the kind of unimportant correlations, where there really isn't a strong correlation. And we can put the center as light. We can change this to dark. I don't think that ever really looks truthfully quite good. Can be kind of interesting, I guess. I don't find that it ever really looks very good. I like the light center. Looks, I think, quite a bit nicer usually in most cases, but just to know you have that flexibility. And showing you here playing around again with the diverging palette. What I had to do here is just saying, so we did the continuous map as true. Here I'm setting it as false so that we can do 11 individual colors so we can plot our correlation with our target here. So putting into a bar plot, correlation with, and I'm selecting the index and then the values and then adding kind of full bars to this. Okay? So this gives you, it really allows you to do this, but the way that I was able to, I really like this color, it turned out quite nice, but the way that I did this is playing around with this diverging palette, playing around with all of these, and you can see changing this to light and dark, and then you'll see what the dark looks like right there. You can see it works, and you play around with it until you find something you like. I find it's good to kind of just rerun this sometimes because it gets quite big. There's a lot of these little things as it keeps populating them down and down. And if you wanted to grab one of the colors from here, you'd be able to say this red, green, blue is the 3 color combination in this cell right here. It'd be this one right here. Okay. So thank you for joining me. Have fun with the diverging palette. This is a great tool to understand how you should be passing these arguments, what arguments you should be passing to the diverging palette by using the choose diverging palette. It can be pretty hard to just stumble around. You can find the colors that you like, but it is much better to have a tool to figure out the colors that we need. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you